All right, there we go.
Okay, good. So again, folks, my name is Peter Shapiro. I'm the Prince George's Planning Board Chair, Chair of Maryland National Capital Park and Planning Commission. I've been in the role for about a year and a half.
Yes.
I'm proud to say it's a wonderful organization, and I've had quite the experience even over the past year and a half. For those of you who've been around for a while, you may remember me as a former council member as well. And council chair from years back, so long time commitment to the county and to seeing that we get the kind of development that we want and deserve, and that we are careful that it's the right kind of development in the right location. That's a big part of what we do and what we focus on. We are in good hands with James Hunt. He is the chief of the Development Review Division. He is if I may say, a bit of a rock star. And he has a presentation for you to help go through the ins and outs, the very mundane, sometimes arcane world of development review. It is quite wonderful to see how many folks are interested in this topic. We are open to not just present, but also to answer questions, hear any concerns that you all may have. It's an iterative process, it really is. In large part, we are driven not just by the law, but we're also driven by what we hear in the community, concerns that folks have, and we want to be as responsive as possible. So with that, again, it's a pleasure to see you all. Let me turn it over to James, and he may have some additional introductions, and then he has a presentation for you. And again, thank you, Ms. Brown.
All right, thank you, Chair Shapiro. I want to take a quick moment to introduce to everyone. We have our Deputy Director on the line here, Derek Balaj. Derek, are you available? There you go.
Good evening. Great to be here. I'm just here to listen and support James and our wonderful chairman. I'm looking forward to the presentation.
All right, and thanks, Derek. Real quick, I just want to, as a brief point of introduction for myself, I'm James Hunt. Like the chair said, I'm the Planning Division Chief for the Development Review Division with the Prince George's County Planning Department of the Maryland National Capital Park and Planning Commission. And to begin, I want to make sure that I am speaking clearly. So can everyone hear me very well? Okay, I had some issues with the mic earlier today. So we can go ahead and get started. I'm going to share my screen real quick. And as we go through this presentation tonight, I want to make sure everyone's aware that, if you have any questions at any point in time, please jot them down. At the end of the presentation, we'll take some time to go through all the questions that you may have. I'm not going to be able to see the way the screens are set up here. I won't be able to see everyone as they're raising their hands or whatnot. But at the end of the presentation, I'll be happy to go through all of the questions that you all may have to make sure we answer them in time. Let's see, and also as a quick reminder, housekeeping, at the top of your screen, if you all are not familiar, some folks may not be familiar with Microsoft Teams. At the top of the screen, if you look up there, you see, I know that we were referring to the red leave button. That will mean that you're going to leave the meeting. I don't think you want to, but in the event you need to, you're more than welcome, of course, to hit that button and you can roll on out, because I know we have other, there are other things that take place as well during this time. In addition to that, on the left side of the screen, if you keep scrolling left, you can have the option to mute your mic there, as well as to show your face if you want to show your camera. And then last but not least, a little further over, it says raise, and you see a little hand there. So if you have, for example, I have a little icebreaker, a few questions in a few moments, you can use that icon there to raise your hand and you can answer the question, participate. I do want to make sure this is an iterative, more so of a participatory process or a presentation, because I really want to get that involvement to make sure you're in there and your understanding of what's going on in the development process. So let me go ahead and share my screen here. Second. All right, can everyone see my screen? So again, you've just introduced everyone to all three of us. We're at the Maryland National Capital Park and Planning Commission. Let's see here. The next slide, for the agenda today, I'm going to briefly go through the icebreaker, and then we'll go into introductions of all the decision makers that we have within the process. Also, as a part of the many elements of the development review process, I want to go through each one of those. It's going to take a little bit of time, and that's going to be the bulk of the presentation there. And then last but not least, I'm going to do a quick wrap up. Given the fact that we're having some additional folks come on in here, I am going to, let me try this real quick. 1 second.
Mr. Walsh, if you
That's
can
it.
mute your mic, that would be great. Mr. Rick Walsh, thank you.
All right, so quick icebreaker. So quick question for everyone. On a scale of 1 to 5, how familiar are you with the development review process? 1 being absolutely not familiar, and 5 being very familiar. So if you can, if you want to at this point in time, you can raise your hands and I can kind of go through this as far as to see who you got here. Mr. Holloway. How familiar are you with the process? Oh, you're on mute, I believe.
Okay, I just unmuted. 1, sir.
1, okay. That's fair. That's totally fair. I definitely understand that. Anyone else? I think Gillespie. Is F. Gillespie here? Yes.
Yes, that is true. I'm not aware.
Okay, okay. All right, do we have anyone else? Let's step up to the plate and participate here.
I'm a 1 also.
1. Okay, so typically we're finding more so 1s. Ms. Flynn, you're a 1 as well? Is that right? Oh, you're on mute.
Yes.
I didn't hear you.
Yes.
Okay, all right.
I'm about a 3.
A 3, okay, all right, that's fair, that's good, good. Okay, so what we'll do, I want to hopefully at the end of this process, not to say that everyone's going to be a total expert, because there's still some things that I'm still learning here, and I've been dealing with this for about 5 or 6 years now. So we're all learning here. So it's definitely a good thing here. Okay, next question here. Have you ever participated in a development review process within the development review process? Now that means, have you spoken at a board hearing? Have you submitted any comments to the planning board, contacted a developer or a homeowner about a project?
Welcome to the audio
submitted
conferencing
anything
center.
within the
Please enter a conference
submitted
ID,
application?
followed by
You have somebody who's not on mute here? All right. Or submitted anything as far as an
If you're the meeting
application
organizer,
to
press star now.
can you all hear me? Good. Okay. All right. Or have you
You are now
represented a
joining the
developer or
meeting.
homeowner on a development process, a proposal? Anyone want to
Please wait
answer
for
any
the
of those
leader
questions?
to admit you to the meeting. Thank you for your patience.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth.
Hi, it's Tamara. Somebody's entering another meeting, so if you can mute. But since I'm on, I'll answer the poll. I've done all of those above.
All right. Excellent. Anyone else?
This is
Hi.
Yvette. I don't know if anyone can hear me. I was, when I lived in Camp Springs, I was very involved in the Camp Springs, the Branch Avenue Metro development. So yeah, we were very involved and in fighting the planning board on getting high quality housing. I've worked with a lot of, with Tamara, as a matter of fact, in District 8 and District 9, fighting that. So I'm somewhat familiar, but clearly not enough. That's why I'm here.
Gotcha, no problem. That's great, because I'm gonna tell you that Branch Avenue project was massive. So, and kudos to you for your participation in that process. Anyone else?
Yes, I'm Elizabeth, and I have participated in some of the Hydefield, Piscataway Road protest, going to court in PG County and testifying. And I think we have also signed several documents. voicing our opinions about some of the planning and development in the Southern Maryland area.
Gotcha. Okay. Definitely. And that Hyde Landing project is coming back before the planning board on November the 2nd. So stay tuned. All right.
Okay.
Anyone else?
Hi, Tony Wilson, if you can hear me.
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay. Just last week, I participated in a meeting. It was the first time that I had a dealing with the project here in the area. I'm in District 8 here in Camp Springs, so yeah.
Excellent. Excellent. All right. Anyone else? Oh, Ms. Flynn, did you want to?
Oh yeah, I'm with the Greater Baden-Aquasco Citizens Association, and we formed in 2020. Excuse me, 2000, and we've had numerous testimonies before the planning board and different issues that we have tried to resolve or participate in.
Right. Excellent. And I think Miss Abercrombie, Vivian Abercrombie.
Yes, I have not participated before.
Okay. All right. So let's see here. What I'm going to do is we'll go ahead and get started. Next one. Any barriers that you've encountered in the process? These are some examples of them, but any barriers that you've all have encountered in the process itself? I know a few, Miss Elizabeth, you were talking about earlier about I think Hyde Landing. You spoke about that one, and also someone else spoke about, of course, the project with Branch Avenue Metro. Mr. Wilson, you spoke, I believe, on one last week. So, there have been times, I know there's some barriers that some people have come across in the process that may not have agreed with, or think there are areas of improvement that could be utilized as well. So anyone want to kind of add into that?
I can add in. Last week, prior to last week, I sent an appeal on the project, and my appeal was very passionate. It was about 11 pages, and what I discovered is that I ran the gambit. I ran the gambit of because it was for a CSP, a conceptual site plan. When I received the notice, it was as if it was the project was about to be built the following day. So I panicked and I wrote like 11 pages and did all this research. Only discovered that it was sort of preemptive. And Mr. Brown, I believe he's here with us tonight. He was able to help me to articulate and understand the requirements. So yeah, real difficult in initial. So I'm glad you guys are doing this tonight. So thank you for that.
Absolutely, absolutely. All right, so real quick, we'll go ahead and get started right into the lecture here. So the first folks I really wanted to make sure that everyone was aware of within, as far as decision makers within the development review process, is your county council, or we refer to them as, when it comes to zoning matters, as the district council. As a part of the land use article of Maryland, back in the early 1900s, they formed the Maryland National Capital Park and Planning Commission to handle the planning services in addition to Parks and Recreation for Prince George's County and portions of course, Montgomery County as well, to handle the park side on their end. Here on our side, they require that the council is referred to the district council, so they wear multiple hats. And so their hat, when it comes to zoning matters, is the district council hat. So they're making all types of legislative decisions relevant to zoning matters throughout Prince George's County. So, and you all have the power to elect these folks into their positions. So again, they are your district council. In addition, you've also already been introduced to Chairman Shapiro today. Along with Chairman Shapiro on the planning board, we have Vice Chair Dorothy Bailey. Most of you may be aware of Vice Chair Bailey because she used to be on the Prince George's County Council some years ago. In addition, you have Mr. Manny Giraldo, along with Will Dorner and Commissioner Shawnice Washington. Commissioner Dorner and Commissioner Washington as well. These folks have been on there for quite some time. They are well versed within the development review process, and we're really excited to have them part of our team. As a part of the, real quick, 1 second here. As a part of, as far as our customers, I want to kind of clarify here, our customers who all we serve here in Prince George's County, we're serving our residents, our elected and appointed officials, county, state, federal agencies and departments, various municipalities all over the county, the business community, community-based and faith-based organizations, multicultural populations and organizations, visitors, and last but not least are the employees within Prince George's County. And to clarify here, just a reminder to everyone, Prince George's County is huge, okay? We have almost 1 million residents, and we're serving a vast population of various backgrounds and ethnicities as well. In addition to that, kind of going into the development review process, we're ensuring that the development review process fosters responsible development, positive physical and social impacts on community, evaluating the design, the density, the use, and other factors when it comes into development. And then last but not least, you have those various decision makers who are out there, such as the county council, the planning board. In addition to that, we have our county planning staff who are working hard within the development review process, and other officials as well working with the residents. So the relationship between planning and development. So this is very important here. We have various plans out there that which displays the vision, and I'll go into this a little bit later, but those plans that are out there display the vision of what the county and how the county wants to grow. Okay, and then you have the actual final development, which has to fit into that vision. It doesn't have to be specific exactly one-to-one, but it has to fit into what that vision and the goal, what the visions and goals that have been stated for that area are. All right, so now there are 7 stages within the development review process. First of all, we're going to start off with there's a master planning process, there's the zoning process, the subdivision process, the site plan process, final platting, and then permitting, and then enforcement after that. This series will provide information about what each step is, who's involved, and why each step is a part of the development review process. So now let's take a look at each of the individual steps within the process. Okay, the first one we're going to really start off is relevant to the master plan process itself. So there are various different scales of the plans that are out there. You have the general plan, which is it's countywide, it's a comprehensive plan countywide. It's the overarching plan for the entire jurisdiction. For Prince George's County, it's Plan 2035, if you heard of Plan 2035. Further, we have a countywide functional area master plan, which is also a countywide plan and would also include plans such as master plan of transportation, which many of you may have heard of that recently because the county is undergoing a review of the existing master plan of transportation. That was, I think the last one was maybe back in 2010. Next, we have a standard master plan, which covers one or multiple planning areas. And then last but not least, we have our sector plans, which covers portions of one or more planning areas that are out there. Okay, and now we're going to talk about the zoning aspect of it. So what can zoning do well? Okay, zoning is good at determining how much can be developed on a single piece of property or the entire block. Also zoning, it's also good at preventing incompatible uses to exist next to each other. So if you're going to have, in most instances, you have a single family detached home right beside a heavy industrial use, that's kind of more of an incompatible use. So what zoning tries to do is try to buffer those particular uses from each other in some form or fashion. What does zoning not do well? It's not good at preventing specific brands of businesses. I know that, sometimes, you see on social media, I don't want to see a McDonald's over here, but I'd much rather see another high-end burger joint that may come in. I'd much rather see that. Well, it's not good at doing that. That's not what zoning does. Zoning looks at more so the uses that are out there. Also, zoning isn't good on its own at forcing specific businesses to move. So if you don't want a business in a location, zoning primarily doesn't do a good job at requiring them to move. It's better achieved with well-rounded policy strategy, or I'd like to address tax incentives and other government-funded improvements to public infrastructure, things like that. Zoning also isn't good at limiting the number of people in a particular neighborhood. It's good at determining the density aspect of it. However, it's not going to truly limit how many more can be at one location, how many actual people can be there. All right, so to kind of go into this a little bit deeper here on zoning itself, because this is really huge, and I want to make sure everyone's understanding what zoning is. Zoning has two main components. There's the zoning ordinance, and then there's the zoning map. The zoning ordinance describes the various zones. It lists the uses permitted in each zone, specifies the densities, and sets forth the procedures to change the zones. The zoning map itself now, it shows where each of these zones are within the county and therefore where the rules described in the zoning ordinance are applied. So in essence, you've got the rules, which are the zoning ordinance, and then the map where the rules apply, okay? So real quick, since we're on the zoning aspect of it, I want to take a quick moment to introduce to the group Mr. Stan Brown, who's the People's Zoning Counsel. He can provide you an overview of his role within the zoning process in Prince George's County and explain how you can utilize him as a resource. Mr. Brown?
Oh, yes. Thank you so much, James. Tamara and I, we go back, 2 or 3 decades. And so we're old friends. And then, Mr. Wilson, I met you last week at a district council hearing, and I also see several other persons on tonight that I have interacted with over the last 25 years. For those of you who do not know me, I am a lawyer in Prince George's County. I have my own private practice. However, I have a contract with the county government where I am what is called the People's Zoning Counsel. And I have been the People's Zoning Counsel for 25 years since 1998. So I have served dozens of county council members and 4 or 5 county executives. And so I have somewhat of an institutional knowledge as it relates to zoning and planning in Prince George's County. My role in the county is to be a neutral arbiter, if you will, of the facts in each zoning case. Even though I am titled the People's Zoning Counsel, some people get that confused because it's really a misnomer in that I do not represent the people. And so that's important to understand. I really represent the record. And so I will appear in zoning cases before the planning board, the zoning hearing examiner, and or the district council. My role before the planning board and the examiner is to help to develop the record. That is, I am authorized to ask questions of the witnesses, and I'm authorized to put evidence in the record if I deem the applicant or the opposition have missed certain facts. When a case is appealed to the district council, my role changes somewhat. In that capacity, my role is to protect the record. That is, a record has been created before the planning board or the examiner, and now at the district council level, all participants are only allowed to talk about facts in the record. And the reason that that is important is because, I'll give you an example. Let's say there's a traffic light that a particular subdivision or zoning case is at issue. And the people in the community say that there are too many accidents at a particular intersection. And the developer says there's 0 accidents at the intersection. Everybody talks about that before the planning board or the examiner. But then when we get to the district council hearing, either the applicant or the opposition wants to talk about another intersection. And they say, well, this other intersection has 200 accidents. Well, we cannot trust that statement because it has not been tested by opposition or cross-examination during the planning board or the examiner process. So at that particular point in time, I would object and say, that's not in the record. We can't talk about it. We don't know whether it's true or false. You didn't put it in the record, therefore we can't discuss it. And what that allows is protection to both the applicant and the opposition so that random facts that have been not verified are not put before the decision makers, the district council, and they then do not make a decision based upon something that's not been subject to everyone's review before the planning board or the examiner. Now, as People's Zoning Counsel, though, I think the most important role that I play is I can be an education source for both the applicant, zoning attorneys, and the opposition and persons generally in the community. That is, once a community becomes aware of a potential project, oftentimes I will get telephone calls from the council members. I may get calls from people in the community. And then I will educate them on what a particular project is about, what they can and cannot do, and what the community should focus on in that particular hearing. I will not give and cannot give under the zoning ordinance legal advice, but I can point you in the right direction and educate you on what you ought to be looking for. For example, oftentimes I find that people in the community, because they're busy in their own private lives and businesses, they don't understand this process, and it is a very complicated process. I mean, I learn something new every month in this particular role. But oftentimes I find a member of the public is not aware of the documents where they can go and answer most of their questions. For example, the planning board technical staff creates a technical staff report for every single case. Their staff report usually lays out the rules that are applicable to each and every development. And so members of the community should be aware that, hey, first thing I want to do when I become a person of record in a case is let me read the staff report. That's going to outline most of the issues in every case. Now, there are occasions when there are other issues not in the staff report, but that's when, as a member of the community, you can pounce on and say, hey, well, what about this? What about that? It wasn't discussed by the applicant, the opposition, the examiner, the planning board, whomever. But as a base, you need to read that staff report so you understand the rules. And so my final word to you, so I don't stretch out this presentation by James too long, is that my telephone number, I will put in the chat. My email, I will put in the chat. At any point in time that anyone in the community has any question or concern concerning either a pending zoning case or just general information concerning the zoning process, you may call me, you may email me, and I will discuss those issues with you. I may not give you the answer you want, but I will at least bring you up to speed so that you understand the process as it relates to development in your community. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Mr. Brown. Really appreciate that. So we will go ahead and continue on here. So the next I want to kind of go into are the different types of zones that we have in Prince George's County. So we have the residential zone, which obviously contains primarily uses of residential nature, but there are some locations that may permit non-residential uses, but it's just more so they fit more so with the residential character. We also have mixed use zones, which are contained obviously of, hold on a second, sorry. A mix of uses. As far as residential and non-residential uses, you have non-residential zones, which contain non-residential uses, obviously like grocery stores, gas stations, offices, retail uses. We also have transit-oriented activity centers. Those are zones that contain uses that would be anticipated for higher density areas located adjacent to major transit locations, whether it be a metro station, it could be a major bus station, it could be a major intersection throughout Prince George's County. So those are where you're going to find most of your transit-oriented activity centers. And then last but not least, you've got the MIO, or the Military Installation Overlay Zone, which are all those areas adjacent to Joint Base Andrews, which I believe most of you are familiar with. And the reason for that, and I'll go and get into this a little bit later, is because there are different requirements from Joint Base Andrews regarding uses and heights and things like that for obvious reasons. Next, we're going to also within the zoning ordinance, it determines the land use, the various zoning districts that are out there and available. Also, it determines a building form for every type of structure throughout the county. Floor area ratio, which determines more so the height and the space of the buildings and the structures. It determines density. And also, like we're kind of going back to regarding the rules, the notification to neighbors, which is really important too. It determines what that is, what that looks like throughout Prince George's County, as well as the types of documents that are needed to be reviewed by staff and the public and any person under the review process. Okay. Next, we have the zoning map. We were talking about earlier. It shows the geographic locations. Also, where all the zones can be found throughout the county. This actually is a legally binding document. So just to be clear, it is legally binding. And so the planning department is charged to making sure we keep that map updated at all times. And for your convenience, we have the PG Atlas program, which is an online web-based program where you can go online and see anything relative to the zoning map itself, where zones are, what your property is, what anyone else's property is. You can see who owns what property throughout Prince George's County, you name it. Our robust PG Atlas program is phenomenal. It can give you a significant amount of information on there. Okay, so I want to make sure you're aware of that. And remember that, just if you can, just jot down that web address, which is pgatlas.com. Okay. So next, real quick, I wanted to go into how to access the zoning ordinance and subdivision regulations. I'm going to just briefly go into this real quick. There we go. So here on this page is the actual locations, pgplan.org/ZOSR for zoning ordinance and subdivision regulations. On here, you can go in. This is probably more so, you may find this a little boring, but I'm just telling you where the zoning ordinance is located. You can find the different uses and things like that, as well as the subdivision regulations and the landscape manual. But here we've got the zoning ordinance. So I'll click on here and I will go up a little bit, toggle down. In here, we're talking about the different rules that are applicable here. And here are, oops, sorry, a second here. Here are where all the rules are located, everyone. So you can see all those various different rules that are out there. You can see, now this is just one section of the zoning ordinance. A zoning ordinance is massive, but it gives a lot of great information and detailed information on the different uses, the requirements. Mr. Brown, here's his information here as far as the requirements for the People's Zoning Council. So all that's in there. In addition to that, of course, we can talk about the different zones that are out there. And it gives you a kind of, as you keep going through here, it gives you the kind of more detailed information about the zones, such as the density we were talking about earlier, talking about the net lot area, front yard requirements, such as setbacks, the heights of various structures. All these different things can be found in the zoning ordinance. And then one of the things that most of you are really looking at is more so the use table itself. So the use table is telling you what uses are permitted and in what zone. And we'll go through a quick run through example scenario in just a moment, so you can see how that's done. All right, so these are this is actually the zoning ordinance, and here we have also the development standards, which gives you details on the various types of how development takes place, or the rules when it comes to developing a particular property, how circulation is, roadway access, pedestrian, bike access. And various other measures as well. Even goes into the structures and what they need, how they're designed, such as industrial form and design standards. Also the neighborhood compatibility standards, how to make sure a structure is compatible within an existing neighborhood. All these different things are located within the zoning ordinance. Okay, so I'm going to get out of this and kind of go to our next one. So just want to do a quick example here. Okay, so do a quick thing. Let's do a quick demonstration of how zoning permits specific uses for a property. So we've all heard the residents' concerns regarding unhealthy food options throughout the county. Let's use our example here. So I'm the owner of a Hunt's Burger Joint, which is a Georgia-based fast food restaurant chain with a drive-through that offers many unhealthy options. Burgers, French fries, milkshakes, all these different things that are out there, sodas. So my business started back in 1998 and it's quickly taken off for the past 10 years. Now I want to expand into the DMV area. But I found out that I really want to look at the area adjacent at the intersection of Piscataway Road, Old Branch Avenue, Woodyard Road, and Brandywine Road. Most of you know where BK Miller is. So it's right there at that intersection. You want to be, so I'm looking at that particular intersection itself, okay? So that said, we're looking at where can I build my fast food restaurant. The first thing I want to look at is I'm going to look at in the zoning ordinance, where is my fast food restaurant permitted? Okay, what is it going to be classified as? So I look in here, the definition of restaurant quick service, and this one is with drive-through, is an eating or drinking establishment that has any one or more of the following characteristics which you can read there, and all of them are in there as far as a characteristic of my Hunt's Burger Joint. In here, if you look down here in the zoning table, the actual use table, I'm sorry, under eating and drinking establishments, you see here restaurant, quick service with drive-through. Here are the various different zones that are out there that are non-residential zones, as well as transit-oriented activity center-based zones. So in here, you look in here, you can see there's the CS zone. It's permitted. And also in here at the top, let me kind of clarify here at the top, you see it says P equals permitted by right SE. Then also you see in here a special exception, which is the SE, which is allowed only with approval of a special exception. And then you have X, which just basically means it's prohibited. So let's see, which one do you believe is for a fast food restaurant? Can anyone kind of look at that and give me an idea? Tell me which one you think would be permitted for a fast food restaurant here. You can just raise your hand, that's fine. Oh, y'all getting shy on me now. So if permitted.
I was gonna say, I'm not sure I'm understanding your question.
So
it seems like it's only permitted in non-residential based zones, that is CS, C, GO, and IE. Then also in transit oriented or activity center at the edge.
Correct. That's absolutely correct. So you're looking in here and you're wanting to only look at the ones where the P is, which is permitted. So that means they can do that fast food restaurant with drive-through where it says P permitted. Okay. So in here, just like you said, Mrs. Brown, it's in the CS zone, the CGO zone, as well as the IE zone, and then what we call the TAC or transit activity or transit-oriented activity center base edge zone. Any of those 4 zones, it's permitted. Okay. So now the next thing we really want to do is we're going to, one second here. We've already gone through this CS, CGO, IE, and TAC edge. It's for a special exception. It's not permitted in any of those, not required for any of those zones. And then it's prohibited in all these many other zones that are out there. Okay. So we have identified about 4 different zones where we're permitted. So next, I'm looking at this intersection here of Branch Avenue, Piscataway Road, Woodyard Road. I'm sorry, Old Branch Avenue, Piscataway Road, Woodyard, and Brandywine Road. In here, this is the map itself we were talking about earlier that shows where where the zones are located. So as we were talking about earlier, so which specific ones? You can see in here, we've got the various ones. You have RSF 95 as a zone, CGO as a zone, CS, IE, RSFA, all these are different zones. We were talking about earlier, the ones that it were permitted in was the CGO, the CGO, the IE, the CS. So those are the 3 it's actually permitted here. So if I were to identify a property, I as the owner of Hunt's Burger Joint identifies a property where I can go into that location. I've gone into the property owner and talked to them. They say, yes, I'll be happy to lease to you your Hunt's Burger Joint at my location for whatever the lease agreement is. Okay. Then as long as it's permitted by the zone, which is, let's say we're going to use the CGO, it's a permitted use. Okay. It's a permitted use. So that said, next. So ways to change the zoning designation in Prince George's County, I should say. So there are about 3 different ways to change the zoning in Prince George's County. You can do it through what we call a zoning map amendment, which most of you refer to that as almost like a rezoning, obviously. In the state of Maryland, it's very difficult to do a zoning map amendment. And the state intentionally did this because the intent for zoning is to be something that's very comprehensive. So it's for everyone to look at it comprehensively. So here they've basically come back and said, you have to either prove what they call a change or mistake. So there has to be a significant change in the neighborhood or the character of the neighborhood as well, or it could be a mistake that took place when the original zoning was applied for that particular property. So you have to prove that a mistake took place. So whether the authority, meaning the district council, did not have information before them which would have impacted or could potentially have impacted their designation of the zoning for that property. So that those two things have to be proven if the request is for a zoning map amendment. Next on there, we have a countywide map amendment. This is a process that just recently took place within the past few years. Most of you may have been aware of this. The Maryland National Capital Park and Planning Commission, our own planning department here, sent out a mass mailing a few years ago for participation in the countywide map amendment process because we were undertaking a new zone, a review and implementation of a new zoning ordinance. So now we need to determine where those zones are going to be applied. So the countywide map amendment indicated where those zones were going to be applied. And then last but not least, we have what we call a sectional map amendment. Now, there are two different types of sectional map amendments. They have the minor sectional map amendment, which is one in which, such as, I think there's the Henson Creek plan that's looking at right now, which is is being looked at as a minor sectional map amendment, or you have a major sectional map amendment where you have more so in a comprehensive manner, look at major things that are taking place, which are more extensive changes than those minor things that are taking place with a minor sectional map amendment there. So in addition to the planning board, the district council, and the zoning hearing examiner, several other parties are involved in the zoning review and approval. You have, of course, the People's Zoning Council, the applicants, the developers, and other stakeholders like municipalities. They're involved in here too. But the key point here, out of all of this, at the center of this are you. There strictly are you, the residents of Prince George's County. So I want to make sure that's clear. In the middle of that process is the Prince George's County residents, okay? So now, quick question for everyone, just kind of quick break. Why do you think, why are the zoning ordinance and zoning map amendments important for Prince George's County? Can anyone tell me that? Anyone? What do they do, I guess?
I can say that with the ordinance and the zoning map, it's to provide some clear level of direction in terms of order, especially when you're dealing with a residential area. It's like everything has its place.
Absolutely. Let's see here. Anyone else?
This is Vanita Brown from Hill and Trey Estates in Clinton. I agree with the gentleman that just spoke. The zoning ordinance are really imperative to ensure that we don't have the wrong type of establishments in certain areas. I know as a member of the South County HOA Alliance, we know that there are communities that are experiencing nursing, I won't say homes, but basic assisted living facilities that are being placed in people's homes. That's not why people bought their homes for that purpose. So again, that's just one example of why the zoning ordinances are so important, because who wants syringes and needles lying all around the street in a residential area where kids are walking and catching the bus, et cetera?
Right. Gotcha, because you want to buffer, let's say, potentially incompatible uses. That definitely is what it's meant to do. All right. Next, we want to kind of dig in here on the subdivision process. That's the next stage in the development review process itself. So the subdivision process is the process of dividing a property, just like it says, into two or more smaller parcels or lots and plots, or actually not parcels, more so lots and plots, sites, and other land division types. This is done to help manage development that is associated with public facilities. And and I'll go into public facilities in just a moment. But the subdivision process also allows for subdivided parcels to be developed independently of one another, allowing for more flexibility within development. The subdivision process also serves to address the adequacy of public facilities and make sure they're functional, providing necessary services, properly serving residents, and other considerations. The process also assesses the impacts that public facilities will have on the surrounding neighborhoods as well. So as a part of the purpose of subdivision, again, it designs the streets, utilities, and subdivisions, as well as it provides for the relationships of those streets and the utilities as well. And then also determines the infrastructure and other improvements. So now we're going to go into more so the public facility aspect, what I was talking about earlier. What are public facilities? So public facilities are those impacts relevant to the environment, to transportation, which includes bike, pedestrian, and traffic, parks and recreation, police and fire response times, as well as the impacts to public schools. When it comes to the transportation, I think transportation is probably one of the biggest ones we actually see within the development review process. There are major concerns with that. If you have major concerns with transportation, at the time of subdivision is the time for you to get up and speak. Okay, this is the time to get involved, to make sure your voice is heard, is at the time of preliminary plan of subdivision. Okay, subdivision in Prince George's County, also, it's actually, the regulations are developed by the county council, as well as the county executive. The planning board also is the final authority when it comes to the subdivision, as far as subdivision analysis and reviews for those particular plans. And last but not least, it includes these different 4 types of plans that are out there, such as preliminary plan, the final plats, certificates of adequacy, and the vacation petitions. And so we'll get into these a little bit later as well. So next, we're going to go into the site plan process, okay? The site plan process is when you're going to really dig in and starting to see the architecture and, the building coming out of the ground. We're also looking at parking facilities, landscaping. And it details the physical development, such as the stormwater management, woodland conservation, as well as, like we were talking about earlier, with parking facilities, lighting, and signage for different developments out there as well. And it can include 4 different types of applications. I know, Mr. Wilson, you talked about earlier the conceptual site plan. This is a site plan type of application. We also have comprehensive design plans that are out there, which shows basic relationships among the proposed uses, and they also illustrate approximate locations of those structures and streets and site access. Also, we have the detailed site plan, which a lot of folks are really familiar with as well. Those detailed site plans and specific design plans, they show the exact locations and the details for the building. So you have one, which is more so like a bubble plan that shows various relationships. And then when you get to the further detailed site plan and specific design plan, it shows actually where those structures are going to actually be, as well as the streets too. Next, we have the final plat, okay? So the final plat, what is the final plat? So subdivisions are solidified through a process known as platting, okay? A plat is a map of a parcel of land that shows features such as those lot lines, streets, stormwater management facilities, easements, and other things. Also, the final plat verifies the subdivision area as an official area. The documentation of a final plat makes it legally valid, and it's a binding document as well. It's going to show also, like I said, every street on there, the lot, the block information in there, and various other measures. And I want to make a point here that most people don't really know, but when if you're ever purchasing your home, and I don't know if you all have done this recently or not, but please ensure you can tell others the same thing. When you're at the settlement table, before you finalize the signature of any of your documents, make sure that there is a plat in those documents, okay? It's very important that you do that, because later on, if you decide, let's say, to add on to your home, or you want to put a deck on your house, you want to put a front porch on your house, whatever. If you want to put a shed in the backyard, a large shed in the backyard, when you go to get your permit from DPI, or the Department of Permitting, Inspections, and Enforcement, they're going to ask you for a copy of your plat. So this is important to make sure it's in there. So you make sure you always ask and have a copy of that at the time of settlement. If you don't, you can always contact the surveyor to come out and make you a copy, or not make you a copy, but more so provide you with the plat. However, it could be fairly expensive at that point in time. All right. Next, we go into permits. Now, permits is something in which is outside of the purview of park and planning, of the planning department. However, it is within the authority of the Department of Permitting, Inspections, and Enforcement. Okay, they're looking and issuing permits such as grading permits, the building permits, obviously, what we call use and occupancy permits, and signs. So when it comes to applying for actual permits to do the work, then you're going to actually reach out to their agency to get those permits done. They, in turn, will refer those permits over to our staff in Park and Planning for review. They have the final authority when they can issue a permit and not refer it to us if they want to. That's all within their authority. Typically, they don't do that because we work so well together, and they realize how important we are as a part of the process, and at the same time, we realize how important they are as a part of the process. So we work hand in hand when it comes to the permitting aspect. And last but not least, we also have the enforcement side of the process. This, again, is within the Department of Permitting, Inspections, and Enforcement as well. They're ensuring compliance with the zoning ordinance and the subdivision regulations, along with all those other ordinances that are out there as well, such as the building code, and the how any other codes that are out there relevant to the building code, or I'm sorry, the development process. Things that are commonly enforced are more so setbacks and the types of buildings that are out there as well. And they look at a bunch of other things too. What I wanted to do also is to take a point in time to really stay on this side and focus here, because I want to make sure you all are aware of how you can get involved in the development review process. We have now on the website what we call the Citizen Registry. This is one that our recent council had just initiated, a requirement that they had out there. And so citizens are able to go online and actually register to get information on various developments within their council district, as well as one additional council district that's adjacent to their own. Also, if you all are within a civic association or homeowners association, you can register to receive that same information through the association, as well as also participate, or more so listen in, with the Subdivision and Development Review Committee meetings. I'll give you some more information about that in just a moment in the next slide. We also have the weekly development activity notification email that goes out every week. I just got one today, as a matter of fact. That details all of the development applications that are accepted within the past week. So it gives you all the information you need about that, just a briefing of those. And you can look at it by council district, or meaning your own, or you can look at all of them that come in throughout the county. And also here I provided the contact information for DPI, as I was talking about earlier. They are a part of the development review process, and they're a critical part of it as well. And you can also follow us on social media. I know our community planning division, as well as our publications team, does a phenomenal job about keeping all of our information up to date there, and getting information about various developments out there to the public, and feedback from them as well. All right, I talked about the Subdivision Development Review Committee. I commonly call it the SDRC meeting. This meeting happens every other Friday. We just had one this past Friday. In this meeting, it's an opportunity for staff to meet with the applicants and provide them any technical issues that they found initially with the review of their application. It's just an opportunity for us to provide them that information. There's no true opportunity at that point in time to have a public hearing or feedback from the public. That's not the intent of that meeting. That meeting is strictly just to get the feedback from staff to the applicant about that particular project. And if further meetings are necessary, the applicant can set those meetings up with the individual planner or the review staff member as well. Typically, they're attended by our agency, as well as other county, state, and municipal agencies. They are, again, open to the public. We have the website listed on the Park and Planning website as well, or the Planning Department website, for anyone to actually log in and listen in at the meeting. Okay. Also, throughout the county, you've seen all these various different sign templates that are out there. Again, we want to make sure you get involved early in the process and throughout the process. These are the various different signs that we have out there. Primarily when it comes to the planning board, you're going to see the signs that are out there relevant to this orange one that's right there. That means there's going to be hearing on this project at this particular location, okay? In addition to that, you're going to see a pre-application meeting hearing as far as a sign out there as well. Those signs are strictly from the applicant. The applicant wants to set up their meeting, which they're required to do in accordance with the new zoning ordinance that's out there. They're required to meet with the community to get their feedback and provide an actual overview or presentation about the project. Now, things do change on that project as we get further into the development process, but they're required to sit down with the community and talk about those various things of their project at that point in time and to get your feedback and document that feedback, okay? Again, this is that orange sign we were talking about with the planning board hearing that takes place. Also, we do have joint public hearings where the planning board meets jointly with the district council on various topics, such as a master plan or a countywide map amendment, for example, is a good example of that, where they met with the public to get their feedback on various plans or map amendments that are out there. Again, the SDRC meetings I talked about, they're every other Friday. They start at 9:30 a.m. And we, like I said, we generally just talking about technical items relevant to the development application that's before us at that point in time. And to do a quick wrap up, so master planning, it determines the community goals and aspirations. Zoning, it establishes the rules and what can be built where. Then we have the subdivision process, which is where large properties are divided into smaller properties. And there's an assessment of adequate public facilities to ensure the infrastructure is appropriate and supportive of that particular development. We have the site plan process, which is where you're going to see more so the architectural illustrations of the site and improvements. We have final plats, which is where a subdivision becomes to be legal and binding at that point in time, and it provides all the data necessary relevant to street, lot, block, and boundary lines. We have permits, which is in conformance with the development regulations. And then we have the enforcement aspect, which shows the compliance with the zoning ordinance and the subdivision regulations. And I want to remind everybody, again, please, please, please make sure you get involved early in the process, okay? And that will conclude my presentation, and I will be happy to take any questions that you all may have. You can just raise your hand. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Ms. Brown. I'm sorry.
Thank you. There's a whole, just so that we didn't forget, I was suggesting that people put some in the chat. So there's quite a few in the chat if you want to start with those.
Okay.
Then
James, can you see the chat or you need some help?
Oh, I think I got it here. I'm going to go start down. I guess the first one I came to earlier was from, I think, Ms. Wanda. It says, will this slideshow presentation be available for attendees after this call? Yes. So, Ms. Brown, I think I emailed you the PDF version. So you're more than welcome to forward that to anyone here. I'm very happy for that. No, not a problem. All right. And then let's see here. What cannot be achieved or addressed with zoning is somewhat mind-boggling. What is the appropriate group or team to contact to get results regarding the areas the Maryland National Capital Park and Planning Commission zoning team will not address? So, Ms. Wanda, I'm trying to understand, can I get some clarity on your question here?
Certainly. Hi, James. Early on, you said that the zoning team does not address A, B, C, D, E, F, G. You don't indicate a certain quantity, so on and so forth. You were on a roll, so to speak. And I was somewhat concerned. So if your team does not address the things your team cannot look into, who do we call?
So here's what I was referring to earlier is regarding specific businesses. So for example, a McDonald's over a Burger King. Zoning cannot do that. Zoning cannot come back and say, hey, you can't have a McDonald's here, but you can't have a Burger King here. So what that's on more so a civil matter, and it kind of gets it out of the purview of the zoning ordinance, so to speak. Now, what I will say is, now that's something relevant to, you may want to reach out to your council member on some aspects. I'm not saying that particular matter, but there's opportunity to reach out to your council member on certain things. Like I was talking about earlier, there's pieces of legislation that they're able to enact as a part of the legislative body for Prince George's County. That's their role in the process. And so however they handle that, that's how they do it. But legally, and I know Mr. Brown's on here too, it's something that we really can't get into relevant to choosing one business over another.
Thank you for the clarification. That was a good example.
Okay.
Appreciate your help.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. So what's the difference between PG Atlas and the SDAT website? I think Ms. Hughes, that is an excellent question. So the PG Atlas website is Prince George's County's own geographic information systems, or GIS website, that gives the details on every property. It's a map on every property throughout the county. In addition, the SDAT website is a state website where it gives all of the details of a property. When I say the details, it may give the square footage, it gives the amount of, let's say, bedrooms within a structure, different things like that, the tax map number, or tax ID number, I should say. That's what that gives. And but however, I want to clarify here, our PG Atlas program is linked in with the SDAT program. Okay, so you can get that same information through our PG Atlas program. Once you click on the property and it pulls up, it can pull up the details about that particular property from SDAT's website. So that's the state of Maryland's website. All that information is integrated together and at your fingertips. Okay.
So James, is it safe to say that PG Atlas has SDAT and then a whole lot more? So you want to be going to PG Atlas?
Absolutely, absolutely. Our PG Atlas program is a robust program, and I'm going to be honest, I have been in this field of work for over 20 years. It is the absolute best geographic information systems I have ever seen and ever utilized. Yes, Ms. Absolutely. There you go, right there. So if you wanted to, you can go in there, type your address. You can get information about it even links up with the zoning ordinance and gives you details on the different, not the uses, but more so the setbacks and density requirements that are out there. It's very robust. Okay, it'll tell you if it's in a particular jurisdiction, of course the zoning aspect of it, requirements, various other requirements that are out there as well. And it gives you the information about, even goes into information about floodplain, the information it may have about floodplain. All historic locations, historic preservation locations throughout the county. All that's there as well. Let's see here. Where's the legend for all those acronyms? I swear.
That's an excellent question.
I'm telling you, what I will try to do is I will try to find, I think we do have a list of those, and they're on the website, on the Park and Planning website. It's a lot, but we're going to make sure, I'll make sure to try to get that list to you. Ms. Brown, I can forward that to you and you send that to the rest of the team here. I'd be happy to do that, but I'm telling you, it's a lot. But and if you have any particular ones that you have questions about, I'll be happy to answer those particularly. You've got my email address here. You can just email that to me as well. But I'll be happy to forward you that list that's out there. Let's see here. Let's see here. Others.
Where do we lodge a complaint against a potential zoning violation?
So that would go back to the Department of Permitting, Inspections, and Enforcement. So they're the enforcement side. So you have a complaint about a zoning complaint that's out there, you'd reach out to the Department of Permitting, Inspections, and Enforcement. And that was on that phone number I had earlier up on the screen, if I can find it here. Let's see, there we go. The 301-636-2000. You can contact them. All right. See, the zoning process is also important to maintaining the quality. Okay, we talked about that earlier. Who has the authority to make changes in PG Atlas? Is the historical record of PG Atlas available? We have a lot of information on there. However, the planning department is actually charged with maintaining PG Atlas and making sure it's updated at any point in time. We also, they're on the PG Atlas program. We have our latest imagery. Not only the latest, but it goes back years. So you can actually see on a particular property, if let's say if someone decided 10 years ago or 5 years ago that they wanted to actually put a shed on there. And then so you can see before the shed and after the shed was added. So we can actually see what's taking place and when, or approximately when that actually took place. Does zoning have any jurisdiction over a MD or MDOT? Unfortunately, I would say no on that one. We do not have any jurisdiction over them. However, I want to be clear here. We work very closely with our colleagues over at the State Highway Administration. When it comes to those preliminary plans of subdivision, we refer applications out to SHA to get their feedback, especially if those projects are adjacent or abutting to any state highways that are out there, because we need to get information. One of the examples I can give you is relevant to Brandywine. As you all know, 301 goes right in the smack dab middle of Brandywine, and there are major issues there. Anytime a project comes through, through Brandywine in that area, we refer that application over to SHA to get feedback. And a lot of times they do not permit access, for example, to that particular highway. So there's another thing that's out there too.
And James, if I can, just on that one, we also have a bully pulpit. And so when the commission gets involved in these issues, even if it's not at the sort of formal zoning level. So we're in conversation about the highway expansion project 95. We're in conversation about the bridge expansions and the toll lanes. And, we're very, very mindful to be advocating for representing the county's interests on these issues.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And then to add into it, I know we were talking about earlier, excuse me, the master plan of transportation. That master plan of transportation is being developed right now, and we're coordinating with them on that. They're part of the stakeholders in that particular process as well. So I just want to kind of make sure that's clear here. The zoning, let's see, can an applicant file an application that's inconsistent with the master plan or the zoning map? Is this what occurs with the zoning map amendment application? So the applicant can file whatever they would like to, but however, it's not to say that we get approved or what would be the outcome. We would not know. Now, if it's not in conformance or inconsistent with the master plan, our community planning division, our planning department will state that on the record. Okay, and the decision authority will have that information before they make their final decision. So, so as a part of the zoning map amendment application, the application comes in, it gets reviewed by staff, and it gets referred out to all those various agencies that are out there relevant to that process. And once that review takes place, we get the comments back from those agencies. My staff comes in and drafts up what Mr. Brown was talking about earlier, which was the technical staff report, which details all that information of those comments that were provided from those agencies. So if we get a comment that comes back and says this particular use is not consistent with the master plan, then or this development is not consistent with the master plan, then we'll take that to consideration as a part of our analysis of that request. And then that in turn goes to the planning board and on to the zoning hearing examiner and to the district council for approval or denial. So they're going to make the decision. It's a zoning matter, so the district council makes that decision on zoning matters. Okay. All right. Is the PZC, if the PZC can't give legal advice, can he provide education on what a particular application is seeking to do and how to challenge? So, Mr. Brown, did you want to?
Yes. As a practical matter, I do give legal advice, although I'm not supposed to. But it's almost impossible to educate individuals and the public on a zoning case without giving them some parameters of the legal issues that are involved. So when I say I can't give legal advice, I'm not supposed to, but I will tell a community member that, hey, this applicant has not done A, B, or C. So if you want to challenge it, you ought to look at those particular issues. I don't give them the answer, but I tell them what they need to look at. But by the same token, I will often tell a community member as well that, hey, I've looked at this application and the applicant has met all the requirements for the zoning map amendment or the development process, and it probably should be approved. And people will get mad with me about that, but sometimes you have to face reality. And if they've met all the legal requirements, then a project can go forward. But for the most part, I would say that, if you have an issue about a particular application, by all means, send me an email or give me a call, and I'll try my best to give you all practical nuances of that particular application.
Mr.
All
Hyde?
right.
Yes. Would you speak, this is Deborah Kirby from the National Development Review Commission. Would you speak briefly to the involvement of citizens in the development review process?
Sure. So we were talking about earlier, as you can see here, there are multiple ways to get involved in that process. So you can register through the citizen registry, and I know I have a question here, and that alerts you, because one of the things that we hear all the time is, I didn't know. I did not know about this project. I didn't know about this was taking place, or this was going to be, this planning board hearing was going to be on this date and this time. So getting involved is important. So you can register through the citizen registry, through your homeowners association or your civic association. You have to make sure they're registered as well. So because what it does is we provide that list to the applicant, and the applicant is required to notify that citizen association or the civic association or HOA that's out there as a part of that list of that's provided on the informational mailing that goes out. So there's a portion of the process.
Excuse me, and there are also development review citizens committees in various communities throughout the county.
That's correct. One of them in particular, for example, is the Accokeek Development Review Committee that's out there. That's a very strong and very active one as well. Another is the Enterprise Road Development Review Committee that's out there. So there are multiples that are out there. A few, they're not many, but there are a few. And we do strongly encourage those to participate in the process. And also, I want to be clear, when it comes to our public hearings with the planning board, I want to say this and make sure it's clear here. So if the planning board meeting is on Thursday, which we have one this Thursday, by 12 noon tomorrow, anyone who registers to speak, anyone who wants to provide information such as a letter or any type of document, anything they want to make sure is included in what we call the record. And the record is anything that the planning board is going to take into consideration as a part of their decision. It needs to be submitted and received by 12 noon on Tuesday before the planning board. So for this Thursday, we would need to have it by 12 noon tomorrow. Okay, so that's one thing. Also, if you want to speak, it has to be by 12 noon on that same time. By 12 noon on Tuesday, you need to go and register to speak. And there's a website on the planning board's website. You can go in there and register to speak. There's a link in there that provides you that access as well. So the planning board wants to hear you speak. They want to hear what your concerns are, if you have anything, even if you're in support of it. Not always do they want to hear, well, they only want to hear the folks who are in opposition. They want to hear what's good, what they like about the project. They want to hear if folks are indifferent about the project. They want to hear that as well. So they want to hear everything, what the public is thinking about that particular project. Okay, that weighs heavy on their decision. So they'll take that into consideration. Not only that, but your council members do as well. I know, for example, there's certain things you got to stay leery of on there, but when it comes to the council, they want you to participate by coming out to the district council meetings, okay, and participating at those meetings as well as required. So want to make sure that's clear as well. But from our standpoint, we want to make sure your voices are heard at any point in time. Not only that, we also give an opportunity for you all to contact the applicant. So when you see those signs I was talking about earlier, the applicant's information is on there. Call them, Okay, and I know sometimes, here's the other thing. One of the concerns that's been raised recently is because these signs are on the side of the road. If it's sitting on the side, and I'm throw an example out there, if you're going down, Old Branch Avenue, and you're going, I'm just saying you're going 40 miles an hour, and you see this sign just real quickly, and you're going past it, you're not going to get the contact information. No problem. Call us. Okay. Go online, call get the contact information on our website to call the Prince George's County Planning Department. We will get you that information. Okay, so don't feel like that you have to stop on the side of the road to jot down that information. You can give our folks a call, and we'll provide you that information via email. We'll give you the details of the project. We'll give you the contact information for the applicant, whatever it is. If you have other questions about the project, ask them. Okay.
Yep.
Ask those questions. We want you to be informed. An informed community is a well-educated community, and it's a better community. Okay. And it's a vested community.
Hey, James, just to make sure that we're staying with the order of the questions in the chat. I think we have Stacy Hartwell next, related to the Citizens Registry. Is it integrated with public notification for state and federal projects?
Unfortunately, it's not. For that particular question, it's not. It's strictly for the development applications with the Prince George's County Planning Department. So for state and federal projects, it will not be included on those. Okay. Let's see here.
Oh, excuse me. What's happening is some people we've raised our hands and we're not being able to speak, and people are adding questions, and you're going to all the questions in the chat. Because like my question, some parts of it, I don't know how to formulate to put it in the chat. So I wanted to ask it.
Well, that's fine. I'm definitely going to get to everyone. So don't feel like I will not get to you. I'm definitely going to I'm trying to get down through the chat first, and then I'm going to reach over to everyone else who still has questions. Not a problem. You will be heard. Trust me. I'm not going to leave here today without answering your questions. Okay. All right. Let's see here. Who makes the recommendation of sectional map amendments? Can a private developer file an application for a sectional map amendment? Those primarily are made through the council. So your council members make those recommendations, and they determine what's going to be done through the for each fiscal year. So they coordinate with our planning board, and the planning department to ensure that those particular amendments are taking place or are analyzed for that time period. If an agency does not participate in an SDRC meeting, how can citizens register their concern or provide information about adequate public facilities? Again, you can just contact staff and email us that information, or if you want to, you can email the planning board, which those comments get to staff as well, which is through what we call, the email address is PGCPB for Prince George's County Planning Board at MNCPPC, Maryland National Capital Park and Planning Commission.org. So you can email us your questions, and we will ensure that that information is provided to you as well. Let's see here. What are the requirements and changes to a master plan public hearing? So when it comes to changes within a master plan, again, that's the same situation where that's really done through contacting your council person and coordinating through them, and that we get our direction from the council on those. Let's see here. Looking at future uses of my home and upgrades, potentially looking to add a second story along with wheelchair ramps. An elevator is more of an aging in place resource. Is this allowed? And if so, what would be the process? So that is one in which you would probably need to have a conversation. It's really property specific, because we need to look at the zone, which of course, like we were talking about earlier, determines the height, the density, and things like that of the structure, the floor area ratios, things like that. So depending on your property, our staff would have to take a look at that and give you more information. Of course, we'd all have to coordinate with the Department of Permitting, Inspections, and Enforcement as well, because they're going to review for the elevator aspect of it. Okay, and also not only obviously the permitting side of it for the addition to the structure. Let's see. Is it
Mr. Hunt?
Yes.
I'm sorry. Yeah, to add to the question, I've already reached out to DPI, Tony Wilson here. I reached out to DPI, and they told me on that the process on the elevator begins with Parks and Planning. Is that true? Or in other words, where does it start is the question.
If it's strictly with the elevator itself, if you want to add on to the structure, then you can start through the permitting side of it. Okay, you submit your permit application there. They will then route that over to us. We'll need to do an analysis and see what needs to take place at that point in time. Okay, so our permit team will review that to see if everything is okay to do for that addition to your home. There are different requirements. You may go into a setback or whatnot, but the point is that you could start there. You to start there with the building permit. They'll route that to our team, and then we'll determine at that point in time, because at that point in time, we'll see, actually what you're planning to do. So then we'll be able to determine as far as what your next steps are going to be for your particular project. Your home is going to be different from another person's home in Hyattsville, for example, or someone's home in Akakeek. It's going to be different. Every property is different, obviously. So we need to take a look at what you all are proposing as a part of your permit process, and then we'll be able to tell you at that point in time what's going to be necessary.
Understand. Thank you.
Okay, sure. Let's see. Is it possible to get a copy of the it's the definitions you gave? Is this a part of? So is this within the Mr. Holloway within the presentation, or?
Yes, it was. You already addressed this, saying you would provide the brief to Ms. Brown, and she'll get it to us.
Oh, okay. Yes.
Thank you.
Sure.
I put a link in the chat for the legend. It says legend, and then there's a link, and you'll see it.
So please comment on the citizen involvement. And I think we talked about that earlier. I also talked about the elevator permit issue. Let's see, the county should invest in taking time to hold PG Atlas community training. As I see, this question comes up in the community a lot. We do have a training program. So if you all want to, you can, as far as related to PG Atlas, I would be happy to sync you up with the team to provide that information to you as well. You've got my emails on that last page of the slide here. So let me go to it real quick so you have it. Oops, sorry. Just so you have it there. There's my email address. So you're more than welcome to email me. And what I will do is I will forward you or contact the folks over in our GIS team, and they can coordinate with you to get you that training that you need. All right, and then let's see here. So what environmental equity lenses? Let's see, lenses screens related to the Justice 40 initiative are applied when reviewing proposed projects. Are you talking about through Ms. Hartwell through are you talking about environmental justice or?
Yes, I am talking about environmental justice. I understand that MDE and say, for example, the University of Maryland, they have environmental screens where they rate communities for being overburdened or underserved. And in consideration of projects that impact those communities, there are certain lenses that are applied that relate to the Justice 40 initiative.
So I can't speak much to the Justice 40 initiative. However, a lot of our items are relevant through like, for example, the Master Plan of Transportation. We look at various impacts to communities when it comes to those projects. If there are various impacts to our specific development projects, we would potentially look at those as well from a community planning standpoint. And our community, like I said, our community planning are looking at those items. When it comes to when it comes to actual environmental issues such as floodplains, things like that, we have an environmental planning section that reviews that as well. So there are some aspects that are reviewed on the scale that I think you're talking about. It's more on a community planning scale, which is through our master plans and sector plans that are out there. And they also, I can't say for sure, but within Plan 2035, it may address it as well. But we do take a lot of these things into consideration when we develop our plans that are out there. Okay, and we coordinate again with many of the agencies that are relevant too, such as SHA, through the process. So because we don't want to have it where, a major highway is going through the middle of a impacted community, separating a community as well. Okay. Does Mr. Brown represent the people or the county? I think we've talked about that one, answered that question. Got the email and phone number as well. Let's see, the new state legislation for community solar arrays under 2 megawatts is not reviewed by the Public Service Commission. The mandatory referral is not referred to the state and now seems to supersede all planning and zoning requirements, public notification, public hearing, etc. What can be done? If this is something that is state legislation, that would have to be taken care of at the state level. So your state legislators represent your community specifically. You need to contact them to make sure that's addressed in some form or fashion on that aspect. When it comes to local government, of course, you have our local folks who would address it. But when it comes to those mandatory referral portions, they're going your state legislators would be your best bet at that point to talk about this one in particular. Okay. Let's see here. Ms. Hartwell, did we answer all your questions? I want to make sure we did that.
Yes.
Okay, excellent, excellent. Okay. All right, all right. From let's see, if a developer is proposing a residential development, does the planning board at some point in the application process evaluate if the community or area has adequate recreational type amenities for residents? If so, does the planning board require the developer to build such amenities, or do developers just build the kind of amenities they want to offer to residents? Well, that's an excellent question as well. That actually takes place in 2 parts of the process. In the subdivision portion of the process, amenities relevant to recreational facilities are part of those adequate public facilities that have to be met. So they determine at that point in time, where they let us know either they're going to do on-site amenities, if they're going to be if it's going to be fee in lieu, or if it's going to be a combination of both. That's determined at the time of subdivision. Now, specifically what they're going to do, what the amenities they're going to provide, that's done at the time of site plan. Okay, at the time of site plan review, we review what they're proposing, and if we don't feel like those amenities are going to meet what the needs are of the community, or let's say it didn't meet that cost amount they are supposed to meet legally, then we require them to go back to the drawing board and meet those requirements. In addition to that, I have seen where the planning board has requested, let's say, ADA accessible equipment. It's not only them, but this is a requirement as well. They have to meet. So we look at the facilities that they're proposing to provide, and we see if it actually meets those particular requirements of our rec facilities guidelines. Okay, so that is done at.
Can I add on to that too, Jay? So you may know, but within MNC PPC is not just the Department of Planning, but also the Department of Parks and Recreation. So I have the honor of sitting over both of these wonderful departments. And so this is something that's very near and dear to my heart. And we're looking at all sorts of new and innovative ways to make sure that the Department of Parks and Recreation is inserting themselves even more into the development review process to make sure that we continue to have these world-class amenities and all over the county. So I really appreciate that question, and we're quite attentive to it.
Absolutely. We are a worldwide award-winning agency. I want to put that on the record. We have a phenomenal amount of facilities, and they are the absolute best. Okay. All right. So now I want to go to, let's see, hands. I think Monique, you had a question?
Good evening. The question is, I understand that you can't say a McDonald's or a Burger King, but what about, how do you get into the oversaturation of a type of development or business?
Like which one specifically, Ms. Monique? Give us an example, just so we can speak to the thing that sort of irks you the most.
Well, I can start with gas stations. I can start with Wawa's, Royal Farms, Like if you have within a quarter of a mile, you have a car wash, why would you put another one right around the corner?
I think that is an excellent question. Okay, and I'm telling you right now, Ms. Monique, we hear that all the time. And what that is going back to the exercise that I did earlier. And the legislation, Ms. Hartwell put dollar stores on there. The legislation that's out there does not speak to saturation. Okay. It's strictly the way zoning actually works. It actually says where you can have a particular uses. It doesn't speak to the actual what those businesses are. If it becomes, for example, to your point, if it's on one intersection, you've got a Royal Farms, a Wawa, a 7-Eleven. It's not coming back to say that you cannot do those businesses there. Now, however, if your county council person puts forth and the county council enacts legislation that speaks to that, that's a different thing. So again, what that does at this point in time, and I have seen other localities that actually do that. Okay, they've I think certain things like gas stations, for example. I seen my previous locality, they did that for gas stations. But it just kind of depends on the locality. And so if your council members look into doing that, that's a legislative piece. Once they do that, as a part of our analysis and our staff report, we would be required at that point in time to look at that to see if there is an oversaturation of those particular uses within a range as far as a significant range or an area. Okay, so that's a part of that would be definitely a part of that process. All right, anyone else have any questions?
I wanted to say thank you.
Mr. Scott is on stack. He's been waiting to ask a question.
Okay, yes, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. I typed stack because I thought you could see the questions from there. And I got on a little late and I was looking to see if people would ask. I really don't have a question. I just typed stack thinking I could see the questions. Not real experience on Teams. I'm more of a Zoom person and but I'm getting there. Thank you.
Absolutely. Not a problem, sir. Not a problem. Really appreciate it. All right. And we also have Tommy here. I think, Tommy, you've got a question.
Yes, thank you. I would like to follow up on the amenities question. Then if a developer is in a residential community, if they're required to build some amenities, I'm assuming it seems that the established practice is to have an HOA. Are there any other ways because people love to hate HOAs, and I know there's some other HOA people here. And I'm just wondering, are there any other ways, or is that the standard way that if a developer in a residential community, they build amenities and they're required to do so, or they want to do it? Are there any other models that the county is using to because I realize there has to be a long-term plan to maintain those amenities. And are there any other ones used besides HOAs?
Not because we have to look at more so the maintenance of it, to your point. And that's strictly where the HOA comes in. So we would look at, I know, for example, I'm trying to give an example here. Preserve at Piscataway, which is not too far from you all, I believe, is a huge development down there, and they had to provide, of course, various recreational facilities on. I think they're doing that on site. You see a playground, you see various parks and walking trails throughout the development, things like that. So that's a part of their recreational benefits that are out there. As a part of the review process, we would look at those and determine if they were sufficient or not. And not only that, we're looking at that. Okay, I want to clarify, we're looking at that, but you're open to look at it too. As a part of the project, you're getting engaged in the process is very important. So if you come to the planning board meeting and you say at that point in time, I was able to take a look at those particular amenities that the applicant's proposing, and I'm not really liking it, or I don't think they meet those. Can they do this? And that's an opportunity. And not only that, but you can reach out to the applicant sooner. and I've seen it, and I'm honest, I've seen recently where applicants have made changes prior to going to hearing just because they know that the community was not in favor of what they were proposing. So they made some changes to the recreational facilities that they were providing or other things that they were providing. And because they want to make sure they're kind of integrating into the community as much as possible. They understand Prince George's County is a very vocal community, okay? And we want to ensure that is maintained at all costs, okay? And so they realize, the applicant realizes that. And not only that, but planning department staff, your planning board, your district council, everybody's making sure that happens. So please, if you see or are uncomfortable or don't even know what those facilities are, contact the staff, my staff. We'll provide you a copy of it. Also, not only that, we publish the information on our website 2 weeks before the planning board hearing. You can go in there and get a copy of it just to take a look at what they're providing. And then if you want to reach out to the applicant, staff, whoever, to state your concerns, go ahead and do so. Go ahead and do so.
And can I add just specifically to Parks and Recreation, again, one of the benefits of having a Department of Parks and Recreation that's a sister agency to planning. To your, if there was a specific example, and let's say there's a large scale development that's coming in and there was going to be a homeowners association, and let's say there's a lot of folks in the community didn't want this recreation amenity to be connected to the homeowners association for whatever reason. If you came to us and said, we think it would be better served if the Department of Parks and Recreation managed this facility in the community, we'd certainly be open to that discussion. You know, that's what we do. And it's one of the advantages of having this sort of collaborative nature. So I don't know the specific situation that you're talking about, but just have a conversation with us and see if there's a good solution for you.
Absolutely. We have examples of that, like, for example, in Westphalia Central Park. That's one in which Park and Planning is coordinating with the development community to ensure that Central Park's in, not only with the development community, we're with the council members, with Councilmember Blagay. We're coordinating with her and her team, and not only that, but that there's civic association that's out there to making sure that it meets the needs of that community as well. So it just kind of, and also kind of going back to, you know, what our budget needs are. If you're wanting to see more parks in certain areas, then contact our parks department. Okay, that a part of their program, that's a part of their role and what they're charged at looking at too. Okay, any other questions? Thought I saw a hand pop up. Mr. Holloway, I think, again.
Yes, sir. In this whole process of allowing development of homes and things like that, the infrastructure is not being maintained or considered, it appears, in a lot of developments that's coming up. How do we address that to get ahead of that?
So that's always analyzed at the time of preliminary plan of subdivision. So all those infrastructure improvements we're talking about, transportation, the road's not wide enough. I know one of the biggest things, that's the reason why I used the example right there at Piscataway Road, Old Branch Avenue, and Woodyard Road, where, you know, that's a major intersection that has a lot of traffic going through it. And we have, I know there was Clinton Marketplace North was a development project that was right there at that intersection. I know, Ms. Brown, you participated, I believe, in one of the hearings as well for that one. In particular, that, you know, we analyzed transportation at that point in time. We analyzed environmental impacts, which is another infrastructure impact. We also analyzed parks and recreation facilities, all these different things, bike facilities, pedestrians, all that is analyzed at that point in time. So we encourage the community to kind of get out and get involved in the process at that point. So when you see a sign that's out there, or you get notification in some form of fashion for a preliminary plan of subdivision, that's your time to speak about those infrastructure improvements or concerns. I want to clarify here, a lot of times we do hear things and concerns relevant to police and fire response times. Those are another thing that's analyzed at that stage. It's police and fire response times. One thing that's also looked at is relevant to schools. Now, that's looked at a little differently, okay? So schools is not completely a full out test. What it does, it shows what the impacts to those schools are going to be. And it does not say whether or not it fails or passes. So that's not what it does. But what the developer is required to do at the time of permitting is to pay the fee which goes back into the school system for that to make up for those educational concerns, let's say impacts that are raised within the process that are associated with that particular development.
Now, did I also, Mr. Holloway, did I also hear you questioning around maintenance as well?
So,
and the maintenance is going to be our Department of Public Works and Transportation. There's an enforcement element, but it's mostly going to be Department of Public Works and Transportation. If you see, if it's a county road, if it's a state road, it's state highway. So, you know, in a situation like that, what would I do is I'd reach out to my council member. And so they'll help you figure out who the right person is in that. You can always call us too, and we'll help you make sense of it.
And the county's response would be to use 311. But that's just another avenue. So I know that some concerns are with 311, but I'm going to leave that alone. That's not my role. I'm going to stay strictly on the development review process and show you your options. So your options 311, you can call your council member, or you can reach out directly to DPW&T. Okay. All right. Let's see. Anyone else?
I don't see any more questions, but I do want to personally thank Mr. Shapiro, our planning board chair, Mr. Hunt, our division chair, and his deputy. And say the last name, I don't want to botch it up.
Berlage.
Berlage, okay. For, and
director.
Stan Brown, the People's Zoning Council, for participating tonight. I know it was a lot of information. I do plan to send the slides to Mr. Hunt using the presentation out. So if someone forwarded my email to you and that's how you got this information, if you want the slides, please email me. I put my email in the chat and I can add you so that you can receive that as well. But, you know, I think it's so important for us to understand the process. And as I said in the email, so many times these 3 or 4 people, they only see the zoning attorneys and the attorneys representing the developers. And then, you know, after a while, when we finally get wind of it, you know, there's a lot of uproar. And I thought it was important for us to understand the process of where we can provide our input and how we can provide our input and what tools and resources we have at our disposal. The Greater Piscataway Alliance, the South County organization, it actually kind of started around development along Piscataway. Mr. Hunt talked about Clinton Marketplace. There's the Bavard property, which I hear is getting ready to come back online. Highfield, a whole lot of, but if you're interested also in joining us, we're not just looking at property in Clinton, but also all of District 9 and District 8, particularly the southern part of District 8, which includes Fort Washington, because we know that there are a lot of still undeveloped land, really large tracts of farmland. Lord forbid the Miller family decides to sell everything. We're going to be really in bad shape, but feel free to let me know that and join us, and we'll try to have more educational, informative information. But I really thank, again, Chairman Shapiro, Mr. Hunt, who's been a wealth of information to me personally, along with Mr. Brown, for taking the time tonight to share this presentation with us. We really do appreciate you.
And thank you. Thanks to everybody I mean, it's such a beautiful evening out there. You could have done other things beyond spent this 2 hours with us, or hour and a half. And I just also want to say thank you, Ms. Brown, for your leadership. It's super helpful, and we're happy to be a small part of it.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you all. I appreciate it.
Okay. Good night.
Bye-bye.
Night.